Hello everyone, AZ Flyer here. And in this video, we are going to have some fun with logic switches and call outs on our sensors. So, we've talked about setting up a air altitude sensor using air pressure. And we've talked about setting it up here on our main screen there so that we can have our readout. But, when we're flying, we don't have any way of knowing what the altitude is, right? If we don't take our eyes off and look down here, of course, we want to fly our airplane. So we'd like to have the transmitter talk to us and tell us what our altitude is. So you can do this, you can do a couple different things here, and all of it really. One of the things you could do is you could have it constantly call out your altitude to you. I've tried that. It's a little much, it's a little annoying to the people around you for the transmitter to always be talking, but you could do that. You could also have it set to maybe call out the altitude every 10 seconds or something. Or you could set it to say, only tell me when I go above a certain altitude. Maybe I've got a ceiling that I can't fly above at my club. And so if I get near that, I want it to call out and talk to me. So you can do all those different kinds of things with the X20S, which is really fantastic. So we're going to go over some of that today. Okay, so we'll start out with the most simple thing, and that is to have it call out the altitude to me, and we can set it to repeat or say it once, but just to be talking to me and tell me what my altitude is. So very simple to set up. We're going to go to the Special Functions menu. So we're going to press the airplane to bring to our Model menu, scroll over to the right, and you'll see there's a Special Functions tile. Tap on Special Functions, and you see you have your list of all your audio call-outs or special functions that you've made. We're going to hit the plus sign to create one. And here's where we just answer a bunch of questions. So what do we want the action to be? We want the action to play the value of the sensor. And the value is the data that's coming from the sensor. So what value is the sensor reading? So we're going to scroll down here and select play value. We're going to enable it. So we're going to turn it on. What's the active condition going to be? Well, the active condition is the sensor being on, right? The telemetry reading. So go ahead and select that. And we're going to come down here and we're going to select telemetry. And then on the right side, we're going to select altimeter or altitude, excuse me. And so altitude is what we want. So telemetry and altitude is our active condition. That's what's making it active. Well, what is the value? What do we want to play? Well, we want it to play the altitude. So go ahead and select telemetry again over here. Now we're selecting what is it you want it to read to me. And we're going to telemetry on the left, and on the right we're going to select altitude. So once we step off, we've got our altitude being read and going to talk to us. Now we can also have this repeat to us. So if I want to repeat it, I can come down here and say, well, repeat.
2 feet, 1 foot, 1 foot.
So now it's going to repeat every 2 seconds.
2 feet. 2 feet. 2 feet.
Right? A little annoying, right? So maybe we turn this up to, say, every 10 seconds.
2 feet. 2 feet. 2 feet. 2 feet. 2 feet.
So if we wait 10 more seconds,
2 feet.
it will play, right? So that's the simplest form, is to have the altitude read off in just a straight altitude talking to us, and you can set the repeat for however often you want to repeat. Now, if you don't like the idea of it talking to you all the time, maybe you can put on a switch. So you could flip a switch, and when that switch is in the right position, it'll give you the altitude. You can do that as well. So let's show you how to do that. That means changing our active condition. So in this case, the active condition is the altitude. We're going to go to a switch instead. So we're going to come over here. We're going to say, let's go to a switch position. And then now which switch? Let's say this switch right here on the right. So when this switch on the right is all the way to us, it'll play. So now you see the switch is down arrow, and it will do it once. If I want to make it repeat,
1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1
I can make it repeat,
foot.
or just once. So now when this switch is off, it won't repeat. Watch, I'll turn it up to 2 seconds.
1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. Motor active.
Now that the switch is off, it's not talking to me. So if I flip the switch on,
Manual. 1 foot, 2 feet.
now the sensor will talk to me.
2 feet.
Motor active.
Okay, so now what if you only want it talking to you when you get above a certain altitude or below a certain altitude, right? You want that to be the criteria to talk to you. Say you want to know what the altitude is above 200 feet. Well, we can do that by going into our logic switches and setting up a logic that says when it goes above 200 feet, then activate this special function, okay? So we're gonna do that in the logic switches menu. So go ahead and back out of this. We're gonna go to the logic switches tile. All right, so we're gonna have any here, so we're gonna press the plus sign to create a logic switch. And our logic is gonna be when altitude is greater than a certain number. So A, being the altitude, is greater than X. And we can make X whatever we want it to be. So we're gonna say our function is gonna be A is greater than X. Okay, we also wanna call this altitude so we can know what it is. So I'll just call it alt. So A is greater than X. A is gonna be our altitude, our telemetry altitude. So we're gonna tap on that. We're gonna pull up our telemetry. We're gonna look for telemetry here on the left, and then we're gonna look for altitude over here on the right. So our telemetry altitude. When our telemetry altitude, that's our source, is greater than a certain number. So we need to test it here on the bench. So let's see what we can get. So 0 is the lowest number that we can get here. So when our telemetry, when our altitude gets greater than 0 right now, that's the logic switch that will activate the special function to tell me what the altitude is. Now you can go in here and make that whatever you want. If you want to make this 200 feet, you can down up to 200 feet or whatever you want. For testing purposes here on the bench, I'm just gonna do it the lowest one we can do, which is 0. Okay, so you can see right now I'm green because my altitude is indeed above 0. If I take my telemetry and put it down on the floor, you'll see it turns red because now my altitude is below 0, right? So as my altitude comes back up, my telemetry turned back to green again. So I know my logic switch is working. So now we're gonna go back to that special function and make the active condition this out logic switch, okay? Because this is the switch. Instead of a manual switch like we had before, we're gonna take this logic switch is now my activator. So we're gonna back out of this, go back to my special functions, go down to that altitude special function that we just did, open it up, edit it, and you'll see my active condition is that switch. Remember that annoying switch? So instead of that, we're gonna tap on that and make it a logic switch. So logic switch now becomes my active condition, and altitude was the only one I had. So you can see it's talking to me now, right? If I take and put my sensor on the ground, where now it's below 0, it stopped talking to me. So the logic switch now is the activator for this. If I pick the telemetry module back up again and set it on the table, it's gonna talk to me. So the logic switch now is the activator, not a switch on the transmitter. Okay, now that we've done that and we know it's working, let's go back to our logic switch and let's turn that thing up to like 200 feet, right? Let's go back to edit it, and that 0 feet value, let's turn that up to whatever you want to know. Let's say when I get up above 200 feet, we'll say 204 feet here, that's when I want you to talk to me. So now you'll see it's red because my sensor is sitting on the table. I can't make it go above 200 feet. Once I put it in the airplane and fly it and go up, that logic switch will activate, it'll turn green, and it'll activate my voice track. Now you can do this for all kinds of things. You can do it for airspeed. You can say, when I get above 20 miles an hour, call out my airspeed. Or if I get below a certain airspeed, call out my airspeed. And that's what I started doing. I wanted to know how fast I was going. So I would set it to, as soon as I took off, maybe as soon as the gear came up, tell me my airspeed. So I would know, this is about how fast this airplane will go. But then it got kind of annoying, and it got to the point where I really only want to know what my airspeed is when I'm landing, so I can try and maintain a certain airspeed. So I set the logic switch to say A is less than X. Airspeed is less than, say, 70 miles an hour or something like that. And that way then it will only call out the airspeed when my airspeed drops below a certain level. So these logic switches are very, very helpful. Just remember, look at this and say, what is it? Do I want to be A equals something, less than something, greater than something? And what is my something? Well, is it a telemetry, or is it my gear up, or is it a switch position, or whatever? So your logic switches are really a great way to have the airplane make a decision for you and then do something based on that decision. So I hope this was helpful for you. You have some fun with it, play around with it. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I'm glad to help where we can. And I think you'll have fun with it. So good luck and be safe out there flying.